Hi, I'm PBA champion and World Masters champion Chris Barnes. Let's meet our coaches for the Increase Your Average DVD collection.
Beautiful shot. And she gets it.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Doran Ballard, USBC Director of Coaching.
She wanted it.
Hi, I'm Kim Terrell-Kearney, Assistant Coach for Team USA.
Hi, I'm Rod Ross. I'm the head coach of Team USA.
Yes! Yes!
The importance of spare shooting cannot be overstated.
That's high.
Many spares are made or missed before you even release the ball. Knowing the angle of attack and having a system that you trust
Knocks it down.
can turn you into a great spare shooter who can instantly shift the momentum of a game.
If you're not a good spare shooter, you will often be a frustrated bowler. Lots of times this can be from being a little bit lazy after throwing so many strikes in these high-scoring conditions that your feet are just not in the right place to take advantage of that extra oil in the middle of the lane. Our coaches are going to show you a spare shooting system that will help you take advantage of that extra oil and make more spares with confidence. Having a spare system that you can count on will erase the doubt from your mind and will definitely improve your spare shooting.
All right, having a spare system is crucial for bowling in today's league conditions. Being able to adjust and having a system that you know that you can make the moves to pick those spares is very critical, whether you're bowling league and or tournament.
Spares is very crucial. It doesn't matter whether the shot is easy, whether you're in a tournament condition. That is the thing that can add pins to your game, and that could be the difference in winning a match. Win your game for league, doesn't matter. It's the thing that adds pins to your game.
So what we're going to show you today is a simple system based off 7 moves, based off 7 columns or rows of pins that you can make your adjustments and know how to pick your spare. And it's all going to be based off your starting position for your strike ball.
The key to the sparing system too is it doesn't matter whether you're a high rev player or a low rev player, throw it straight. Doesn't matter. Spares are crucial for everybody.
Correct, and this system it works, like Carolyn says, works for everybody. No matter if you're playing second arrow or third arrow, you can make the adjustments and pick these spares. We have Brian now lined up on lane 10. He's been able to execute quite a few shots, standing 27 and looking and hitting third arrow. But now Brian missed a little outside and left a 5-pin. Well, the 5-pin is part of column or row 4, which would be the head pin and the 5-pin. The adjustment for the 5-pin is going to be stand in the same position and hit the third arrow. For Brian, that is going to be 27 to third arrow or 15.
Teresa's been bowling on lane 10 and is lined up. She's standing on 17 looking at 10, and that is her strike target. Although she's playing a different part of the lane than Brian, she can still use the sparing system for zone 4 using the 1-5 target off of her strike shot.
Brian now has left the 2-8 spare. That is going to be what we call row 3 or column 3. To pick the spare, Brian needs to move 3 boards to his right with his feet. And his original target was third arrow, so now he will go a half an arrow to the left. So it'll be between third and fourth arrow.
Teresa now is going to use zone 2 spare shooting to make the 4-pin. She will now move 6 off of her original strike target. She started at 17. She will now stand on 11. She will now look somewhere at the 12 or 13 board to make the spare.
Brian has now left the 7-pin, which is going to be in zone 1. To pick the zone 1 spare, Brian needs to move 9 boards to the right, which will take him to 18. And again, his target only moves a half an arrow to the left from the strike position, which will be between 3rd and 4th arrow.
For Teresa to make the spares in the zone 1 area, she will move a full 9 boards to the right off her original strike target, which was 17. She is now standing on 8. Her original target was the 2nd arrow, which was 10. She will now move her eyes where she has been between the 2nd and 3rd arrow, which is a half an arrow move to the left. So it could be somewhere between the 12 board or the 13 board.
For spares in zones 5, 6, and 7, we need to move to the left with our feet, and we're going to be changing our eyes on the lane. This is where the system changes. We move 4 boards to the left for each zone or row of spare that we leave, and we also move a half an arrow to the left with the move. So Brian started on 27. He will move to 31 on this spare and move a half an arrow, which is going to be going between the 3rd and 4th arrow.
For spares on the right side of the lane, once again, it doesn't matter whether you're a high rev rate player like Brian or a straighter player like Teresa. We are going to use the same zone system and just make the moves accordingly. For zone 5 spares, Teresa is going to move 4 boards to the left off her original target, which was 17. She's now standing on 21, and she is moving her eye target a half an arrow to the left of where she started, which was the 10 board. She will now look somewhere at the 12 or 13 board to make the spare.
Brian is now going to shoot at the 6-pin, which is actually in zone 6. Being that this is on the right-hand side, zones 5, 6, and 7, we continually want to move for each zone 4 boards to the left. For zone 6, Brian is going to want to move 8 boards to the left. He also wants to move another half an arrow from zone 5. So Brian's original target was the 3rd arrow. His target now be the 4th arrow.
Teresa will now shoot at a 6-pin, which is in zone 6. She will move a full 8 boards to the left off her original starting position. Starting with 17, she is now on 25, and she will move another half an arrow left. So her eyes will now be on the 3rd arrow, the 15 board.
Brian now is going to shoot at the 10 pin, which is at zone 7. For zone 7 spares, we want to move 12 boards to the left from our starting position. Brian started on 27. He will now be moving to 39. For each one of the columns, 5, 6, or 7, we continually move a half an arrow. So Brian now will be looking between the 4th and 5th arrow.
To make the 10 pin, we're going to move a full 12 boards to the left, which now puts Teresa on the 29 board. She is going to move her eye target a half an arrow left, which will be between the 15 and 20 board, around the 17, 18th board. Remember, very important, as you move your feet to the left, continue to move your eyes that half an arrow left.
The 7-zone spare system was designed for bowling on house conditions or the local conditions you're going to see at your bowling center during league. But sometimes you're going to find that getting that 10 pin is pretty difficult, that you have a hard time getting the ball far enough over. As you can see, Teresa has made the move for her zone 7 spare, but she is having difficulty getting that ball far enough over for the 10 pin. It wants to hook away. The reason for that is the bowling balls today are very aggressive and they are definitely designed to hook. So the option we would highly recommend is that you get yourself a spare ball, a ball that will go quite a bit straighter. You can still utilize the system, but it's going to enable that ball to get over there and pick up that 10 pin.
There are left-handed bowlers, right-handed bowlers, high arm swings, and low, and all sorts of ways to get to the line. Even at the highest level, like here on Team USA, you'll see a little bit of everything, but the most important things like balance, posture, and good angles, well, those are always there. In this section, we'll help you with the physical game.
Some of the key elements that separate average bowlers from great bowlers at any level are the ability to maintain your posture, your body angles, and balance at the foul line. Now, I see a lot of players sacrifice these things in the effort to gain more revolutions and have more power. But in the end, the truth is that if you maintain your body angle and your posture and keep balance at the foul line, your rev rate will go up, your accuracy will go up, you'll be more versatile, and most importantly, your average will be higher.
For league bowling, it is very important that you get your angles preset for the style of bowler that you are to enable yourself to be more consistent down the lane. We're going to have 3 styles of bowlers. We have a tweener.
We have a straighter player and a high rev rate player.
Okay, so we're going to demonstrate with those 3 types of players how they would actually play the house condition, and by presetting the launch angles through the front or in their stance enables them to be more consistent.
Here we have Teresa, our straighter player, and this is an example of how we would want to have her body position at the finish. Being straighter, we want her shoulders and her hips square to this launch angle. We want to preset that in the beginning of her approach. So in order to accomplish the proper angle at the point of release, we want Teresa to have her shoulders square, her hips square, and her ball side foot square with her left foot. This way she'll be able to duplicate that at the finish position. Here we have Steven, our tweener. He doesn't have quite the high rev rate that Brian does, but not as straight as Teresa. What we've done is we've created the position we want to have him so that his angles match his launch angle. So he's slightly open at the shoulders, at the hip, and at the feet. And this is the angle that I wanted him to have throughout his approach. So we're going to go back to the front of the approach and see how we want to preset those angles. So unlike Teresa, Steven, our kind of tweener player, or middle-of-the-road player, we want to make sure that we've preset his angles to accommodate his ball roll or his style of play. So we want to have his shoulders slightly more open, his hips a little bit more open, and then drop that ball side foot back just a hair.
Brian is our high rev player, and he's going to play the lane substantially farther left than our other two players, and he's going to be taking it from left to right. So he's going to be sliding approximately about 35, 37. So he's going to be wanting to project the ball over the fourth arrow. So we do not want Brian square because he can never get the ball out to the right. So Brian is going to be very open. This is the angle we need Brian to preset in the start so he can have this projection angle through the front part of the lane when he delivers the ball. Okay, because of the launch angle that Brian is going to be a good stream from left to right, we don't want him in square. He's going to have to open up his body. He's going to have to take his right shoulder, his right hip, and his right foot back. The ball position is still going to be the same, but he needs to have this angle to project the ball from left to right. Now that we've had our three style of players and we preset their angles playing the house shot, let's take a look at the data. Down here in the bottom on the red line we have right here, this was Teresa.
Teresa's a straighter player or a lower rev rate player. What we did is we preset her angles so that she's square to the lane.
And up here a little bit higher on the black line right here, we have Brian, which is our high rev, our hook player. And as you can see, he's playing much more angle through the front part of the lane. As he gets down to the lane, they're still playing the lane pretty much similar, but he's gonna have to preset his angle substantially more than Teresa because of that launch angle through the front.
And then the blue line is Steven. He's a bit of a tweener, we would call, a little bit in between the both. And we preset him. He's slightly more open than Teresa, but not nearly as open as Brian was.
So what we want to show you is that you want to make sure that you control your angles, presetting your launch angle through the front part of the lane. It helps you project the ball to the point down the lane that you want to get more strikes. When you're bowling your league, you want to make sure that you can initiate a good, clean, and consistent start. One of the problems that we see a lot of times here in the training center is bowlers have been taught to walk straight up the lane or walk towards their target. But there's several disadvantages to that.
Right. We want to make sure that you're getting the ball into the swing in the right way. We want that swing plane to be consistent. And oftentimes when you're walking with one foot in front of the other, we start to see just a variance in the swing plane. We want more consistency there. And so one of the ways that we work on that here at the training center is we use this tape to kind of help players get a feel for where they want that crossover step to land.
So we'll use painter's tape because it's non-marking. It gives us a visual reference so that we can keep track of where our footwork is going. What you'll see a lot of times for some bowlers is they will step directly forward. They think they're walking straight, and they are walking straight, but our leg's in the way for the swing. What we want to see a step in front of your slide foot. That is actually truly walking straight right into the box. It doesn't matter whether you're a 4-step or a 5-step. A 5-step, you would step and still step front of our slide foot. This will improve your consistency and your overall swing repeatability. Here we have Teresa, and she's going to demonstrate what a lot of league bowlers do when they're told to walk towards their target or walk straight up the lane. On this shot, we're going to demonstrate what we would like to see Teresa do is we want her to have a crossover step or step in front of her sliding foot, enable her to have room for her swing to increase her accuracy.
Posture is one of the things that we really look closely at here at the ITRC. How consistent you are at the start and as you get into your pivot step and into the slide.
So when we talk about posture, we're really talking about from the hips up to the shoulders. And we're looking, and we call it the pivot step. It's the step before the slide. We want to see that posture maintained. Once you get to the top of your backswing, and as you go into the slide, everything should be lower body. You're going to have your posture or the angle from your head, your neck, to your hip being consistent. We don't want to see a collapsing or a pulling back. This creates an inconsistency of break point, inconsistency of launch angle, and it goes the difference between going high and light.
Brian's going to demonstrate consistent posture. You can see from his head down to his hips, everything stayed consistent throughout his approach.
Yeah, and that enables you to have a consistent shot and launch angle and leverage at the finish position.
On this shot, we're going to see Brian kind of get in a position where he gets collapsed at the finish. We see this with a lot of bowlers.
As you notice there, his posture as he went into the finish collapsed forward. He lost leverage on the bowling ball. You'll see bowling balls sometimes go boom, boom into the lane because the upper body just collapsed into the lane at the finish position.
Every so often, we'll see players get to the foul line and really rear back when they release the ball.
You see this a lot from players. They're trying to get some extra stuff on the ball or trying to make the ball hook, and they actually make the break point go closer to her. They have less hit on the backhand, less power, and a lot of inconsistency. We see this quite often. What we use this for is we have accelerometers sitting on Brian. It measures the X, Y, Z coordinates of those accelerometers so we can know the position in time of where his body's at. A lot of players think that they're consistent in their start and their finish, but we can get this down to 1 degree to be able to measure how consistent they are. We've already calibrated it for Brian, and notice here that it's in the red. If Brian gets into a stance, it will turn green. As he moves out slightly, it will turn to a red, which means he's out of the calibration, and that's based off 5 degrees, which is quite a bit of movement. Okay, now we're going to be using our vest to see his consistency of his posture in the stance and the start. A lot of players end up losing their posture after they initiate the ball start. So we're going to have Brian go through the first step and try to maintain posture. This was a very good shot right here. If he moves a little bit more, it gets into the red. It's going to be hard to repeat. This is a very good practice drill that we do here at the training center. Okay, now that we've worked with the vest with Brian in a start position for posture, now we're gone to the finish position. We've calibrated on one of his very good shots on posture. Now we're going to look for repeatability. If he can repeat, it will be green at the finish position. As you can see, that was a very good shot. While you will not have this technology available to you at home, it shows the importance that we place on consistency of the start and finish position, because without a good start or a good post or finish position, it is extremely hard to repeat.
Here at the training center, we work a lot with the opposite arm. Very often we see people just sort of bowl with that whole side of their body sort of uninvolved. And we really want to use it to kind of counterbalance all the movement that's happening with the ball motion.
Yeah, that's why we call it actually the balance arm instead of so much they used to call it the opposite arm. The style they used to teach in the 70s, 80s, even to the 90s used to say keep quiet. They wanted you to keep it down to your side. Today's game is more of a consistent power and balance game, so we got to keep that left side engaged or our non-bowling side engaged.
Right, just absolutely need to be more athletic with today's game with all the power that needs to be generated.
Definitely, and just think of anyone throwing a baseball. You know, if one arm's going back, the other arm's going to be going forward. They want to kind of get that so they have that consistency, that scissor motion for power. So there's some things that we see that bowlers have traits doing. The opposite arm's going flying up in the air, it's going back behind them, you know, it's holding down the side. Where would we like to see that balance arm?
We really want to kind of see it off to the side, just nice and steady and quiet throughout the approach.
Okay, let's take a look at some examples.
On this shot, we'll see Steven, and he's going to get that opposite arm back a little bit too soon. It sort of follows the ball into the backswing.
What happens is when that arm goes back, he has to use his head to counterbalance the ball. So he actually loses posture and has to lean forward. And then as the ball comes forward from the backswing, now his posture has to go back, and you get too much upper body movement.
oftentimes we'll see bowlers get that opposite arm a little bit too high above their shoulder. It gets them up on their toes.
So they end up seeing them there in about 2 or 3 in the posture or the pivot step. They're losing all their leverage because all the energy's going up. And then as they try to release the ball, everything collapses and the ball will have nothing on it.
This is an example of really kind of that opposite arm being in the right position. It's nice and steady right out alongside him.
You notice that it's all balanced out there. He keeps his posture level all the way through the finish. It's going to enable him to be able to repeat shots. With me I have Chris Barnes, one of the best bowlers in the world, and he is a phenomenal example of utilization of the non-bowling arm or the balance arm. Why do you use your balance arm? What is the purpose of having your arm out here when you're bowling?
Well, like everything that goes on within sports, every reaction has a counter reaction. You see a baseball pitcher, you don't see any of them throwing the ball from right here. They reach out and they go back through. Bowling's the same way. As I go through my approach, immediately this balance arm goes down and in front, and it counterbalances my high backswing, keeps my shoulders steady going all the way through the approach.
And if you even watch Chris's career over time, there was a time when he used to bend his non-bowling arm similar like this, a little bit closer, but he still had some upper body movement when he was doing that. And now, as you see, as his game has advanced, he's actually got it extended out there. His upper body doesn't move at all.
So here we are at the finish, and everything that we've talked about here in the physical game everything has to happen properly for us to be finished, balanced, throw great shots.
Yeah, you can't have a really good finish position unless you have the physical game coming to this point. Once we get here, we want you what we call post the shot. You want to be able, sometimes we call it nailing the finish. You have good balance, you can hold that position until at least the ball hits the pins, if not longer.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that you need to be in balance at the beginning, and you have to be committed to that at the start of the shot in order to find it at the finish.
And if we have problems here at the finish where we can't keep our balance, then we do need to trace it back. Is it a posture problem? Is it a starting problem? Where does the problem created why we cannot have balance here at the finish? We see league bowlers all the time falling out of the shot. They think it's a great shot. As soon as it leaves the hands, what difference does it make, coach? It's already left my hand. That causes problems of inconsistency. You want to be able to just nail the finish. You want to post the shot.
Yeah, you start seeing them trying to run it out. It's trying to make sure they strike and hoping and praying that it gets there rather than really being up there and being committed and steady to the shot they just delivered.
Yeah, sometimes they use the excuse, I'm running it out, because they really were falling out of the shot. Okay, now we're going to have some examples of how players of different styles actually post the shot. You look at the balance they have at the finish position. They can stay there until the ball hits the pins.
You can see their head's nice and steady, balance arm is steady. There's not a lot of movement, which is great.
And it needs to be started right in the very stance. If we don't have good balance in the stance, we can't post that shot at that finish position and have that consistency.
No, you're not going to gain balance throughout your footwork. You have to start with it. I think your body sort of yearns to get back in balance.
Yeah, there's used to be that saying, you know, well, I'll get the balance as I move. No, if you start out of balance, you're not going to gain balance and move up the approach. You need to start in a nice balanced position and have that nice, clean finish position.
You can almost see sort of a green light flash in front before they start. You know that they're ready, and they're ready to just deliver a nice and steady balanced shot, which is what we're seeing over and over with all these different style of players.
Yeah, we've got straighter players, we got slower speed players, we got higher speed players. But the one thing you can tell that they finished the shot, that you have a really good finish position. Okay, now we're going to take our models, and this is going to be extremely hard for them, but they're going to try to show you falling off the shot. I mean, it's things they've trained their whole lives not to do. So we're going to give you some examples of what we see out in league bowling.
All right, well, here goes Brian. Let's see what he has. That is a very common move. We see that over and over again.
Yeah, he's trying to get a lot on the bowling ball. The problem is when you do that, you don't get a lot on the bowling ball. You lose a lot of power, the ball ends up going a lot straighter.
And accuracy, I would imagine, as well.
There's a really good one. We've fallen off, get overextended into the leg. Again, this is really tough, but we see it quite often, and it's cause and effect. It's created during the approach. You can't fix it at a finish. You have to fix it during the approach.
Right. You'll see folks say, stay balanced, stay balanced. Well, typically it's something that's happened prior to that finish position. You know, either the shape of their push away or the timing of their push away.
like Carolyn, she just shows us a good one that they lost their posture and they reared up. And when you lose your posture and you go back, you're going to lose your finish position. Stephen, prior to that, collapse forward and you're going to lose your finish position.
Right. Oh, that was a save there.
Boy, that's yeah. We see that a lot of times at spare shots, don't we?
Yeah. Folks where they're just trying to make sure they keep their body going in the right direction and don't think much about staying accurate and steady with it.
Oh, there's the common run out. There's the common run out to save. And now we have Chris at the finish position. Chris, you're one of the best we've ever seen of being able to post a shot. And it's even working with you in Team USA, I can tell just how you finish whether it was a great shot or not.
Well, posting a shot is the most important part probably of everything I work on. I mean, what I work on the start, that's all to get to this one position, because if I can post shots consistently, then I can be more versatile, I can be a better shot maker, and this is the part that allows me to be one of the top players on the tour.
So when our league bowlers and they're bowling, should they have an emphasis on this area? Should they be working on posting the shot?
I mean, everything you work on to the start is making sure that this is the best part of your game. If you can consistently post up shots, you're in better leverage position, you can be more accurate, you'll have more versatility, and you'll have a stronger release too.
Okay, in conclusion, we've shown how important the opposite arm or balance arm is in bowling for consistency.
We really want to make sure when we're on house shots that we really keep that arm nice and steady and alongside when you deliver the ball.
Yeah, we don't want it moving forward and back as we go up into the approach because it causes us to have inconsistency problems. We cannot repeat shots. We don't want to go on up. We don't want to back. We just want to use it as a balance. Just think of a teeter-totter. As the ball goes back into your backswing, you want your opposite arm or your front arm to be balanced.
Great, and then when we think about posting, we want to just make sure that we're nice and steady at the finish, that we don't see a lot of movement up and down. You really want to stay committed to the shot when you deliver it.
Yeah, the posting at the finish position, that's the end. That's where everything comes together, and you want to see that you nail it. It's just like a gymnast doing a dismount of one of their exercises. If they're falling off, you know that there were a little bit problems with the exercise, but you can tell when they just nail that landing. Same thing in bowling. You want to just be able to post that shot until the ball hits the pins.
Just like in any sport, the biggest stages can feel the most intimidating.
Peel! Yeah!
But while there are a lot of variables from place to place, some things always remain the same, like the size and shape of the lane. Coming up, we'll help you get to know the playing field a bit better and show you how to put that knowledge to work.
Lane play in a typical league is much different than what you see on the Pro Tour or in Team USA competition. At the Pro Tour, it's pretty flat, and so if you miss your target by a couple of boards, you might miss the head pin or leave a split. Well, in the league conditions, you get a little bit of help there. Helps you hit the pocket more often, and it obviously moves the scores up. Ultimately, though, it doesn't really matter whether the scores are high or whether they're low. Your job is to take advantage of that lane pattern better than your opponent. So in this, we're going to show you how to take advantage of these higher scoring league conditions.
Most bowlers are concerned with their ball going down the lane and watching it hit the pins. But you know what? Without the approach and the lane, we'd have nowhere to throw our bowling ball or where to start our approach. On the approach, there are two sets of locator dots. One right here in the back of the approach, one here right in front. Depending on whether you take 4 or 5 steps, the length of your steps will be where you choose to start on the approach to make it to the foul line. Now be aware of where you start, because there are some bowling centers on which the approaches have 5 or 7 locator dots. So you must be aware of where you start so you're used to that in case you're in a center that has different dots. Now that you know exactly where you're going to start on the approach and you're ready to make your shot, let's learn a little bit about that lane. Don't forget, though, the first part, the foul line. Do not cross the foul line, because you know what happens. You get a 0. About 8 feet, approximately, past that foul line is your first set of locator dots. A lot of people use these dots for their target. It's a personal preference on where you want to target on the lane. As we go down a few more feet, approximately 15 feet from the foul line, is the arrows. This is where people really choose to target the majority of the time. Why? They're a little bit bigger in size, easier to see. The arrows are in 5-board increments. So the first arrow for a right-handed bowler will be the 5-board. The second arrow will be the 10-board. The third arrow will be 15, and so forth and so on by 5-board increments. For a left-hander, the first arrow on the left side will be the 5-board, and so forth and so on by 5 count. As we continue a few feet further, this is the front part of the lane. This is where you're going to see the majority of oil on a typical house shot. Come with me, we're going to continue. As we go down a little bit further, now we're hitting the middle part of the lane. A little bit less oil, and this is also referred to as the mid lane. This is where the majority of bowlers want to see their ball start to make some type of move to the pocket. On certain synthetic lanes, you'll find darker boards down the lane that people can use to target. They're called range finders. Targeting is a personal preference, like a few other things in bowling. So wherever you're comfortable, whether it be the arrows or the range finders, pick your personal spot where it's easy for you to keep your eye on your target. And finally, as we make it to the end, this is what we call the back end, right before the pin deck. This is where your ball is going to make that turn into the pins and knock down 10. Don't forget, though, this lane is 60 feet long, so that ball's got a long way to travel, but you know what? You can do it. Another part of the lane that people are not familiar with is the oil that goes on the lane. We talked about how the front part of the lane has the majority of the oil on the league pattern, and this here, I guess, is a tube of exactly what's on that 60-foot lane.
Yes, Carolyn, this is, I mean, we bowl on an invisible playing field, which really is hard to tell where's the oil at and where it's not. So I have a vial here and actually has the amount of oil that you'd actually have on a lane. Let me go ahead and add some Fukai so you can actually see this a little bit better of how much oil we're talking about on the lane. This right now represents one lane in the modern bowling world. Used to be, we could get 16 to 20 lanes with this amount of oil. It's changed quite a bit. That's why the balls have changed.
Absolutely, and that makes it even more important for you to know the surface that you're bowling on, which will help you determine what equipment you need to use and what surface you need on that equipment, because the ratio of oil is going to change all of that, and it's going to help you make that decision.
Yeah, speaking of ratio of oil, I mean, this is the oil that's spread out on the lane, but 3/4 of this is in the center of the lane. 3/4 of this oil is between the second arrow on the left side and the second arrow on the right side, pick the left-hander and right-hander. That is why when we talked about the 7 zones, we had to make some different moves as we cross the center of the lane, and why it is very tough for that 10 pin to be able to pick it up with our strike ball.
Which is one of the reasons we did talk about one of the other options was using the plastic ball to take that lane out of play in that hook spot to help you make that 10 pin and be a little bit more accurate at sparing.
Correct. Just being smart about your playing surface and your playing field. Kim, we hear the condition or the analogy a lot, house shot. What exactly, how would you describe what a house shot is?
I think a lot of times when we're on house shots, we see a high volume of oil in the middle of the lane, and typically the outer boards are a bit drier.
Okay, so you're going to see almost 10 times more oil in the center lane between the second arrow and the second arrow from the left or the second arrow for left-handers. So 10 times more oil there than it's going to be on the outside.
Right, so you'll see, typically we want to start a little further right because we get kind of that built-in hook, and we don't have to generate it with our hand or our rev rate. It's kind of free hook to get to the pocket.
So we want to start in the oil. Oil is our friend in the front part of the lane. Dry is not our friend in the front part of the lane. So we want to get the oil in the front part of the lane, but we want to get to the dry towards the mid part of the lane or to the back of the lane.
Right, because you know, with these aggressive balls in today, they really want to start up so soon. So we need that front end oil just to kind of tame it down and help it save energy. So when it sees the friction down lane, it still has something left to make a change towards the pocket.
So you'll see some bowlers will go by a very aggressive bowling ball, and then they try to play straight up the lane on the outside outside and wonder why their ball's not hooking, it's because it's hitting too much friction too early. They need oil up front.
We need oil up front.
Okay, so we got 3 styles of bowlers. We're going to take a look at them, lining up on fresh oil pattern on the house condition, and see where they have to play, and then we'll take a look after they get 3 games and where they have to move. Okay, our first bowler is Teresa, and she's a fairly straight bowler. She's a very accomplished female bowler that we're going to see, but she's going to be pretty direct through the front part of the lane.
Right, and you know she's starting the ball still in the head oil in the front, but you know she still needs to get it to the friction down lane for it to change direction and head towards the pocket.
So she's crossing the arrows at approximately 7 board, and she's getting it down to about 9, 10 board farther down the lane to break point when it's coming back to the pocket. So she has a slight launch angle through the front part of the lane, but fairly direct compared to other bowlers that we might possibly look at. Okay, now we're into game 3 with Teresa, and she's crossing the arrows quite a bit farther left than originally she was at the first game.
Right, I mean, by the time the third game's rolled around, she's needed to move her feet left just because there's been so much play, and her laydown point, there was just too much traffic, I guess you could say there. So she's found a little bit more head oil, moved a little bit further left, nothing too far left to, you know, that she's looking for too much of an open shot. She's just still pretty straight, but just a better area of the lane.
So now she's crossing the arrows about 11 board, but she's still getting out to about 9 board down there about 40, 45 feet to lane, getting back to the pocket. So she's had to move at the arrows almost 5 boards.
But down lane still getting to the same place.
Same place. Okay, now we have our second bowler, Brian, which is a higher rev, more of a hook style player, and this is on the fresh condition.
Yeah, so Brian is crossing much deeper than Teresa did. He's got his eyes right around 15 feet. He's looking at about 19. So he's in quite a bit deeper, but he's still got it to the same break point as Teresa.
Yeah, so he crossed about 4th arrow in an extreme launch angle, so he's going to be more open in his initial shot, but still playing the same part of the lane down lane as Teresa was, which was our straighter player.
So they're pretty much playing on the same.
Yeah. Okay, now we're into the third game with Brian, our high rev player that, you know, hooks the ball quite a bit, and he had to make some drastic move adjustments between game 1 and game 3.
Right, I mean, he's almost 10 boards further left with his feet. His laydown is significantly further left, and he's playing really almost the 5th arrow.
Yeah, so he's almost an arrow and a half difference from the first game to the third game, and he's sliding 10 boards farther left than he initially started. He's really going to have to open up his angles through the front to get the ball out, because he's still playing pretty much the same area down the lane in the 45-foot zone.
Right, stayed in that pretty aggressive ball, which is what forced him further left to find more oil in the front.
So you don't want to be afraid to start moving in when you start seeing that ball starting to hook a little bit early. And remember to keep your angles, preset your angles to get it to that break point. Now we have our in-between bowler, Steven, who's going to, for lack of a better term, some people call him a tweener. He's going to be playing between the straighter player and the high rev player.
And he's crossing right around 14. He's got to the same break point as the other 2 players, right around second arrow, down lane, and you know, as you can see, he made it to the pocket just as easily as they did.
So I guess a key on the fresh patterns is not so much where you're crossing the arrows. It's going to be more based off your style, getting that preset, that launch angle, and getting down to the break point down the lane for this house condition.
Right. Understanding your ball roll and where you need to be on the lane is probably the most important key here.
So lining up to say, hey, you're playing 3rd arrow, I should not be playing 3rd arrow.
Right. You don't always want to play the same area in the front part of the lane, figuring out where people are striking from in the back part of the lane down at the break point.
Now we're into game 3 with our tweener, and he didn't have to move as drastically as our high rev player, but he still had to move a little bit more than our straighter player going into the third game.
Yeah, it looks like he was probably sliding about 5 boards further left with his feet, and through the arrows about 3 boards further left with his eyes. So, we'd call that probably a 5-3 move.
Okay, so he moved his feet 5 and his eyes 3, so he changed his angles through the front part of the lane, still trying to send the ball to the same break point or same area down the lane. So he just changed his angles through the front. So that's an angular move that we would normally call like a 3-2 would be. Your eyes move 2, your feet are 3, 5-3, feet are 5, your eyes are 3. So you're just changing that angle. When you do those kind of moves, though, you want to make sure that you preset the angle right in the stance. You don't want to stay as square or as open as you start changing angles through the front.
Right, you want those kind of to preset your angle to the launch angle that you're creating so that they all match up. So it should look right when you're in your stance. It should look doable.
Now, these were just 3 bowlers, so this was trios, so we only had 3 bowlers bowling 3 games on this pattern. Would we see more of a difference or less of a difference if we had 5 players bowling?
Much more of a difference, and you'd have to make these moves a little bit sooner when you have that many, that many players on the lanes.
So we see quite a few times players, they're striking, so they just stay there, and then all of a sudden they're shot because the lane's changed. Every time you throw the ball, the lane's going to slightly change.
Right, you need to watch your ball reaction at all times, and sometimes it does. It sneaks up on us, and then we get behind the move. We're kind of struggling to catch up, and we're high, we're high, we're high. You've got to really stay where you're paying attention to your ball motion and staying in front of them, we call it.
And when we see league bowlers and they start going a little bit high and change, sometimes their first move is to go grab another ball. But when they do that, now you have to get relined up. Instead of following the oil pattern, chasing the oil in, and staying with that same ball, so many players get out of the ball too quick.
Right, we end up changing balls far too often, I think, in league. And, as Rod says, as you get further left, you find as a right-hander further left where there's more head oil, or if you're a left-hander getting further right, you don't have to make these many changes. You're just chasing that oil line.
And I've seen bowlers too that when they see the ball, because the oil is getting depleted on the lane because of the lineage, they think they need to move right, so they move more into the dry part of the lane, which makes the ball slow down earlier, and they can't get that hook on the back end.
Right. They get tricked into thinking it's almost underreacting, but in actuality it's reading too early, running out of energy. So when we get more head oil, we'll start to see that energy show back up at the end.
And now they try to move back. They don't know where to go. They're moving right, and now they're lost. They're frustrated, and it's not a good night.
Whether you're bowling in your Tuesday night league or bowling for a major title, it's critically important to have a good handle on your equipment. Literally.
Well, that's what happened.
Her grip came out of her ball.
Having the right tools is an important first step to success. In this section, we'll talk about some of the subtle changes that can make a world of difference.
In bowling, like many other sports, equipment plays a huge part of the overall success. I know as part of my job, I'm constantly looking at the technology and trying to stay on top of that so I can keep my competitive edge over my opponents. Bowlers tend to get caught up in making some pretty big adjustments, or what they feel like are big adjustments that don't really have a big impact. While having a 15-ball arsenal is kind of cool to look at, having a smaller arsenal but knowing how to adjust and make some fine-tuning to those surfaces can have a much more beneficial impact on your game.
One of the most important things is fit. And here at the ITRC, when I'm giving lessons, week after week we get players in that they don't have a really good ball fit. So it's really important not only to avoid injury, but to help with your consistency. And I have here with me Brian O'Keefe. He is our Pro Shop specialist here, and he's going to help kind of identify how to make your ball fit properly and what you want to look for, and just in case there's any pitfalls.
Sure. So Kim, if you don't mind helping me out and being my hand model for this little segment, what we're going to do is when we're talking about a fingertip grip, what we want to make sure is that when the thumb is completely seated in the ball, what we're looking at is roughly the gripping hole comes halfway between the 2 joints on the finger. So what that looks like inside of the ball is that, like I said, we make sure the thumb is completely seated, and then roughly the leading edge of that gripping hole gets halfway between the 2 different finger joints. That makes sure, because if we end up going a little bit too long and we're more towards the first joint of the knuckle, what that ends up having us do is squeeze the ball more to hang on to it. Conversely, if we end up getting too close to the second knuckle, that makes the span a little bit too short. What that'll look like is that we have an uneven rise of our fingers as they're entering the hole. We want to make sure it's nice and flat across. Once again, this leads to adding excess grip pressure and making us squeeze the ball more for consistency. Now, the other thing that we want to look at really quick is overall hole size. We want to make sure that we can get our thumb completely in the hole and both our fingers completely into the finger holes as well, down to that first joint. If we end up coming up a little short, we end up having to squeeze the ball more. If we can't get our thumb all the way in, we end up having to squeeze it more with our thumb. Both of which don't lead to consistency and or accuracy. So with those things, I think, you know, that's a quick little at-home fix that you can look for to make sure that your ball fits okay.
Wrist devices has always been a topic in bowling. Do I wear one? Do I not wear one? What does it do for me? And actually, is there a time when I should wear one and not wear one? So what do you think about wrist devices?
Yeah, I've seen definitely a lot of players over the years use them. We have a lot of students that come in here to the ITRC and, you know, should I wear one? What do you think? And, you know, there's lots of advantages in using them. You know, it can help you increase your rev rate. It helps get you a little bit more on the side of the ball if that's what you're looking for. So, you know, you can really get your ball to do some different things going down the lane.
It's interesting because it seems like wrist devices is kind of like spare shooting. It's a personal preference. It's up to the bowler to decide whether it's good for them or not. I mean, and when it is good for them. It may use it sometimes, may not. So let's talk to Stephanie and find out when she started to use a wrist device.
Celebrates.
Stephanie, I see you wear a wrist device. Why do you wear your wrist device and when did you start wearing it?
I started wearing my wrist device probably when I was about 15 years old, and you know, the main reason I use it is just for stability. You know, I'm not that strong, and it keeps my wrist in a stable position throughout my entire approach.
Do you have you seen any drawbacks in using it during competition?
There are certain drawbacks. Sometimes, you know, I get into trouble with, you know, it's just another variable in my bag of tricks that, you know, sometimes I have it, you know, too strong or too weak, and I see certain reactions that kind of get you into trouble. So, I mean, there are certain drawbacks for sure.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's a really good training tool when we want to get players to kind of feel their hand in the right position. It allows you to get your hand in a weaker position, in a stronger position, and knowing when to match that up with the lane position, and that you're, you know, how you're playing the lanes is what's really important in this.
Right. Let's have Stephanie throw a few shots with the wrist device, without it, and then we'll check the data and see what the difference is.
So here we have the CATS data, and these are the two shots that Stephanie threw, one without her wrist support and the other one with. You can see the one that she threw without her wrist support went much straighter, almost identical for the second through the arrows, but you see a difference in the change of direction down lane. Without it, it was much straighter. Her RPMs were at 234, but when she went to her wrist support, kind of cranked it up to kind of what's her normal position. Same at the arrows, but down lane is where we see the difference. 284 RPMs, so an increase in RPMs, and you can see how the ball went much stronger through the pocket.
So it really does make a difference in your rev rate with the wrist device going either straight or in a more power position. So I would check with a coach to help you with that wrist device if you choose to use one, and make sure that you know how to use it properly to be the most effective.
Most wrist supports come with different settings. The particular one that I use has 4 different settings, and here's the reasons why I use them. First setting, I typically use for shorter lane patterns. It keeps me up the back of the ball and my wrist in a steady position. If I want to get a little more on the ball for more medium patterns, I will tend to go to this setting just to get a little more on the back end. For heavier oil patterns, I will then put it to number 3. That'll increase my rev rate overall and get my ball to finish in the back end.
One of the most important things to remember is that if we do happen to wear a wrist device like Stephanie, is that we want to get fitted with the wrist device on. If we get fitted without the wrist device and then put the wrist device on later, what ends up happening is it actually stretches the span out a little too long, and your ability to stay relaxed and not have a lot of grip pressure is going to be decreased. So always make sure that we're going to have the wrist brace on when we're getting fitted for a bowling ball. The other important thing is that, Stephanie, if we can get you to put your hand in here, it's at the little strap that goes across the wrist device. We want to make sure we put the hand in the ball and then we just want to relax the strap across and not have it too stretched. We don't want to put it on before we actually put the hand in the ball. That way we make sure that the hand sits flat with the bowling ball and we're not causing any excess stretching of your hand. So additionally, remember that when we're strapping this strap, we want to keep this at all times, and we're just going to loosen the bottom part, take that off, and leave this strap with the same amount of tension so that every time you put your hand in the ball, you have that same amount of tension up top.
To develop a league arsenal of bowling balls, we want to take a look at our style, what shift we're bowling, and the condition we're kind of bowling on. But too many times we see players think that the drilling's the ultimate thing to get them to strike more.
Yeah, they put way too much emphasis on pin placement and the core, and really more important we're finding is really the surface of the bowling ball that they're using, matching that with their style of play.
Yeah, so many bowlers will just get the bowling ball from the pro shop the way it came out of the box. They leave it exactly like that and go out there and throw it, and they think that it should work immediately without even doing anything to the surface.
Right. If you're a high rev rate player, you might want to put some shine on it. If you have a lower rev rate and you're a little bit of a straighter player, then yeah, maybe the surface that it came from the factory with is proper, or you may want to scuff it up a little bit.
And we hear so often, well, I should have had a pin up ball, or I should have had a pin down ball. So let's look at a little demonstration. We're going to get a couple of other different styles of bowlers with two identical balls, one pin up and pin down, and let's just see what the differences are.
Here we have Carolyn and Brian. They're going to throw a strike with two of the exact same ball. The only difference being one ball is going to have a higher pin and the second ball is going to have a lower pin.
And we call that like a pin up and pin down. And what we're really saying is that pin is that locator mark or dot that you'll see on your bowling ball that's going to be the center of your weight block. Pin down means it's below your fingers. Pin up means it's above your fingers. The theory was pin up would actually give you more on the back end. The theory pin down would give you less back end. But let's take a look at the data.
On the top we have Carolyn's two shots, and down here we have Brian's two shots.
And as we look at the graphical reference of those two shots, you can see that they're virtually identical. They're right on top of each other. These two balls were the same ball, drilled, one with pin up and pin down. But in league bowling, on league conditions, there's virtually very little response difference of those two balls as it goes down the lane. So what we want to say is when you take a bowling ball and you get it from the pro shop, surface changes are going to be substantially more important than how that ball is laid out.
We're using a 600 grit Abralon pad on both Carolyn and Brian's balls. We scuff the ball up and we're going to see if it gets the ball to roll a little bit early and thus hook more.
We took our two players after demonstrating that the pin up and pin down seemed virtually very little difference on the lane. We did a surface adjustment and had them go out and throw again.
Yeah, and they stood in the exact same spot, and you can see that there's almost a 5-board difference down at the pins.
So this is a huge difference. Using the same ball, by just changing the surface, you can change the reaction. Remember, you can only change surfaces prior to bowling in competition. You cannot do it in competition or league play once play starts.
I said, would you please stop moving in my approach?
Distractions are everywhere.
Big Weber's got a strike.
See, that's what...
And he looked right over.
Yeah, he's got to. Whether they come from outside or from within, how you deal with them is what really matters. It's time to dig a little deeper and talk about the mental game.
Who do you think you are? I am.
League bowling can be one of the most difficult environments to stay focused in. Every league has the fun team, the drinking team, the overly serious team, and then every once in a while Peter has an order ready at the snack bar. So while some leagues have some pretty serious money, let's face it, it's way more fun just to win. So with all those distractions going on, we'll show you some tips and tricks to deal with these distractions and help you perform at your best and separate from the field.
Throughout all my years of bowling, there's the same question that's always asked. How important is the mental game? Well, according to what I consider important, 100%. Physical is what you put into it. Mental is your confidence and how you prepare for that shot. When you're in league competition, there are a lot of distractions. When you're back here in the area with your teammates, there are people cheering for other teams, there's yelling, screaming going on. Wait until you're ready. If that bothers you, do not step on the approach to make your shot. That's first. Second thing is, don't forget, you're bowling with teammates. You might be having a really good night in league, but your teammates might be struggling. That could be a distraction. Your bowling is just as important as your teammates' bowling, and they're going to want your help. You have to remember that in the back, on the concourse, where everybody is hanging out, is where you need to take care of all of that. Now, it's your turn to bowl. So what should you do to get in that zone? As you're coming up to your approach, there's two things you can do to get you mentally prepared for your shot and forget about all those distractions in the background. The first thing, close your eyes for just 1 second and visualize that perfect shot. You throwing that perfect shot. The second thing you can do, which nobody can see, is take a deep breath in through your nose, hold it for a second, slowly blow it out through your mouth. That will help relax your body to help you execute the perfect shot. The mental game is so important to be successful, no matter what level of bowler you are. How do you keep the negative from taking over your body and what you're trying to do?
You know, I think it's tricky, especially when you've made physical changes in your game. And, you know, oftentimes you have a player that's really sort of critical and sort of over-analyzing. They start talking to themselves a little bit too much on the approach. And I think one of the best ways to combat that is to just kind of see it more in pictures.
She's on top form right now.
You know, kind of quiet your mind and all of the chatter that may go on, and then just see whatever you may want to have happen. A split second before it happens really makes that much easier. It makes time go a little bit slower as well.
I think one of the key elements too is not to have too much going through your brain at that moment when you step on the approach. All your thinking should be done in the back, and really you should be thinking about just making the shot, and it should come naturally. So really just having that one thought or picture really is what that thought would be to execute and be the best you can be.
You know, a lot of times it'll happen on a telecast. I know it just recently happened with you, and you get up and you're like, oh my gosh, is it still my turn?
To force Deandra to throw the first strike in the 10th to win.
My bad.
And you know, you bowl for a long, long time. Sometimes you forget. It's still your turn.
It happened to me. You know, I'm one of those people that I really don't really watch the score. I just know that if I do the best I can do every frame, they're going to have to beat me because I'm only in control of what I can do. And it's funny that you said that because really I was more worried about, as you had referred to, is really I'd made some physical changes. So my thought process through those 10 frames was about, you know what, let me just visualize what I need to do, not talk to myself, but I just want to visualize that feel I created during the week. And really, that's what I did from frames 1 through 10. And just so happens that I do get so mentally focused that I just, I left the 10 pin, I have to spare it, and then I just go sit down. I mean, really, it's not the first time I've done that. If you go back and watch, I've done it several times. Just knowing that I'm not counting frames, I'm just counting that moment that I need to make the best shot I can.
Yeah, I think sometimes we see folks get too far ahead and they start trying to figure out what do I need, and I think that's where things start to go wrong. And you really want to make sure, gosh, you know, where am I at? Am I present? Am I at this time? What do I need to do in order to make a good shot and move on from there?
I also think it helps with pressure. A lot of people always ask, you know, how do you handle the pressure? I mean, oh my gosh, you're up there and you need that strike. Kind of like even in league, when you're trying to get that 12th strike in a 300 game. It's not really about whether it's the 12th one or the first one. It's about just staying in the moment and doing the same thing over and over again, believing in yourself and seeing that, not in words, but in pictures, and just doing it.
There's nothing more challenging than dealing with an injury.
But he's clearly bothered by it.
The smallest thing can throw off the entire balance of your game.
At that point, it became apparent Monicelli would not be competitive.
But there are things you can do to prevent those injuries from happening in the first place and lessen the effects when they do pop up. Let's head to the ITRC gym.
Preparing for success doesn't just start when you walk into the bowling center. The best bowlers are also great athletes, so knowing about physical fitness and nutrition go a long way towards extending that career and making you one of the best in the game.
We're here in the International Training and Research Center Fitness Center, and here I have Nick Bohannon, our sports performance specialist. And Nick, we see a lot of athletes come through the training center with injuries, and a lot of them seem to be pretty common. Are there ways that they can prevent them?
Yeah, there's definitely exercises that we can do to prevent these common injuries and help bowlers stay on the lanes a lot longer. Typically, areas that we see injuries to are the shoulder, the knee, and the wrist. And we're going to go over these injuries in specifics, but we're going to start off with the shoulder. Most injuries to the shoulder are going to be on the dominant side. Typically, they'll experience pain right here in the tip of the shoulder and have difficulty reaching their arm above their head. Typically, this is going to be because of overuse in the arms from the poor mechanics in bowling or just weakness in the muscles in the back. So we're going to work on exercises to correct these malfunctions and help prevent any injuries. The first exercise that we will do to help fix the muscle problems in the back is the elastic band row. We're just using a simple elastic band wrapped around a pole, and Kim's going to hold on to it and pull it towards her with her elbows, trying to squeeze her shoulder blades together while she's doing the exercise. The focus of this is trying to pinch my fingers with her shoulder blades, making sure that she's using the muscles correctly. There are many different brands of elastic bands out in the market, and each of them has their own color code for different resistance levels. You can also adjust the resistance level to fit your need by varying the distance you stand away from the pole. This exercise is external rotation with the elastic band. Oftentimes with shoulder injuries, injury occurs to the rotator cuff when this becomes weakened. So this exercise is focusing on those muscles of the rotator cuff. Kim is going to keep her shoulder nice and straight and her elbow tucked into her side. As she keeps her elbow tucked in her side, she's going to rotate her upper arm, trying to keep everything nice and in line. This exercise is the upright row. In this case, we're using a 35-pound barbell. This shoulder exercise is really good for maintaining shoulder stabilization, which will help your swing stay in line. For her, we're just going to make sure that we keep working on focusing on our shoulder blades, trying to squeeze them together, focusing on the muscles that stabilize the shoulder. This exercise is called I's, Y's, and T's. Kim is using two soft weights and moving her arm in an I, Y, and T movement pattern. Once again, focusing on the muscles that stabilize the shoulder. You can use this exercise as well before league to help warm up your shoulders and keep your shoulder in swing in a nice even plane. Remember that if you don't have any soft weights at home, you can use any item, such as soup cans, to provide the resistance needed. Due to the physiology of the body, it's important to strengthen the muscles of the hip just as much as the knee when dealing with a knee injury. Here, Kim is going to demonstrate some hip exercises to help you improve your knee function. First off, she's going to do a straight leg raise, just bringing her legs straight up off the table to about 45 degrees. She can do 3 sets of 15 of these. From here, she'll rotate onto her side and do a straight leg raise out from there. Once again, doing 3 sets of 15. After this, she's going to work on bringing her foot up and then working on the opposite leg. This is going to focus more on the groin of the leg instead of the outside part of the hip. After this, she's going to bring her legs back together, bend her knees to about 90 degrees, and then lift her knee up, keeping her feet in contact, working the outside part of the hip. Remember to do these exercises on both sides of the body, because we don't want to create any imbalances. And you can do these 3 sets of 15, 3 to 4 times a week. This exercise works a very small stabilizer of the knee and therefore has a very small range of motion. All Kim is going to do is try and push her knees into the table, causing her heels to lift up off of the table. Doing, once again, 3 sets of 15 of these exercises 3 to 4 times a week. Here, Kim is going to demonstrate a stretch to work on the muscles that rotate the hip. She's going to place one foot on her opposite knee, and while maintaining balance, she's going to squat down. This will cause the stretch to be felt in the leg that is propped up. Then she will come up, and now we're going to work on leg swings that will work on the muscles known as the hamstrings. So she's going to stand on one leg and swing the opposite leg front and back, working on the hamstrings in the back and a little bit in the hip flexor in the front. She should do these for about 30 seconds each, and then do these about 3 to 5 times a week. This stretch is known as the kneeling stride. Here, Kim is on one knee. We're using a foam pad for comfort and a bar here for a visual guide. She has the bar out in front of her foot where she's going to try and push her knee out in front of while maintaining contact with the ground and her heel. So she's going to feel a stretch in her calf as well as in the hip flexor of the leg that's behind her. For this, I would recommend her rocking back and forth 15 times and then holding it for a count of 15 on the last repetition. These can be done multiple times throughout the day to help improve hip and calf flexibility. For bowling, it's important to have strong wrist and forearm muscles, not only for increasing your rev rate and ball speed, but it's also important to counterbalance the repetitive motion of the release. So here, Kim is going to work on flexion and extension using a weighted ball. You can use any weight at home that you may have, including a soup can. So for flexion, she's going to hold the ball, let it drop, and then come back up, doing 3 sets of 15 of these. Once completing these, she'll simply rotate her arm over and do extension. The great thing about this exercise, it will also work on your grip strength at the same time. This exercise is pronation and supination. It works on the muscles that rotate the wrist and have an effect on how you release the bowling ball. Here, Kim is using a bar with a little bit of weight at the end. She's going to hold it out in front of her with her elbow tucked into her side and then rotate her palm over and then come back. Once again, doing 3 sets of 10 to 15. After this, she simply flips the bar over and does the same motion. Notice that she's going to be limited in range of motion on one side. This is just due to the anatomy and a little bit from the muscles. Now we're going to work on the muscles that produce the side-to-side movement of the wrist. These are important for helping maintain your axis tilt as you release the bowling ball. They also are going to help counteract any repetitive movements that are caused from the release. So Kim is using a PVC pipe here that's been filled with sand. It weighs about 3 pounds. If you don't have PVC pipe lying around your house, you can simply use a broomstick. She just has one end onto the ground, her other end in her hand, keeping her elbow nice and tucked to the side of her body, and she's going to lift it up off the ground to a parallel position and lower it back down. Try to avoid just letting it drop back down to the ground. Lower it nice and slowly. Kim's going to do 3 sets of 15 of these exercises. And remember that although we're just concentrating on her dominant side, she'll also want to do her non-dominant side to limit any imbalances that may occur. From here, she's going to use basically the same movement, keep her elbow nice and tucked, lift it up off of the floor to a parallel position, and lower it back down to the floor. We've discussed some different ways of preventing injury, but inevitably an injury can still occur. Carolyn, you came to me at the World Championships in Hong Kong with an injury. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, it was something that just happened. I bent over early in the morning and pulled my back. And as soon as I tried to stand up, I couldn't get up straight. And I just felt a pull throughout my whole entire back. So I ran to Nick at breakfast about 6:30 in the morning and explained to him what happened. And you evaluated. Yep. Obviously, the first thing he did ask was, what's your pain level? And felt around on my back muscles to find out exactly where that pull was. And after we kind of talked about it, he started treatment.
Yeah, obviously we didn't want to put her in risk of further injuring her back. So I wanted to make sure that what we were dealing with was more muscle as opposed to any bone or joint problem. And then we went from there. We started out with a heating pad. Normally you want to do ice right immediately after an injury, but because she was having to bowl and we didn't want the muscles to get tight, we used a heating pad to keep them nice and loose. We worked on massage and stretching to increase her range of motion, and then we used a TENS unit, which is an electrical stim unit that we hooked it up on her back. This sends an electrical current into her body to help keep the muscles a little bit relaxed and also control her pain level.
And it really did work. I think the thing that I noticed the most about it was right after the stretching, when I felt a little more loose, once we got the TENS unit on, I was able to be a little bit more flexible. So it didn't take me as long to warm up during our practice shots. And thank God, you know, my team was strong and was striking at will, but I was able to perform at the level that I felt I needed to perform at to win that gold medal. So it really did work.
Yep. And you always want to remember that if you are suffering from injury, you want to make sure that you do see a medical professional, preferably one that is trained in sports medicine, to get fully checked out and make sure that you're not going to be suffering longer than you need to and spending more time off of the lanes.
One of the other things that's occurred recently, I came to Nick again, was I had some tendonitis and some muscle damage in my middle finger, and it happened right before the Queen's tournament.
Before this year, she started to get a little bit of tendonitis in her middle finger, so she went from a pitch where you see on top that she had under, so her fingers went back underneath the ball. Now she's going away.
And I talked to Nick a little bit about it, and he was great in telling me exactly how I needed to tape my fingers to maybe relieve some of that pressure.
Yeah, instead of just taping normally, we actually wrapped the tape around her finger so it hold it a little bit longer onto the finger without it getting crumpled up in her finger grip, and allowing a little bit more support and taking pressure off of her joints.
And it's really helped. It's really eased the pressure. It's allowed me to bowl once again to where I want to be at the top of my game. And really, without this help and not only preventative, but even after this is taking place, I still have to maintain this routine to make sure that my injuries don't reoccur.
Correct.
Nutrition. It's not really a four-letter word. It only feels like it sometimes. Let's say it's 5 o'clock and you've just gotten off work, you're on your way to league. You're going to have to make a choice either on the way to the bowling center or once you get there. Nick, what are some of the tips you can give about what to look out for?
Well, Chris, you and I both know that it can be difficult to make the right choice. So a lot of times this is going to be planning ahead. You don't really want to get to a bowling center and eat a bunch of fried food that's going to bog you down and hamper your performance.
Now, once you're inside of the bowling center, you know, the menu can be pretty limited. It's a grill. Fried foods, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What are some of your choices that you run into there?
I would look into like a sandwich, something that's like a turkey based, something that's grilled, not fried. Try and maybe skip the fries, go for a water, Gatorade, and then if you really need maybe a pick-me-up, maybe a Snickers bar that has a nice protein, calorie balance that's not going to really give you that bad influence later down the road.
Well, I think that's great advice. As someone who spends about 300 days on the road, it seems, a year, and I'm in the bowling center all the time, that's where I've gone to as well. Picking the grilled chicken, skipping on the fries, having water or iced tea instead of a soft drink based product, and really trying to avoid that extra fried food that really bogs you down. And it gives you a quick spike, but it really doesn't help my performance overall because I do end up with energy levels all over the place.
Yeah, you don't want to have a low in your performance or even in your mental status later on, because that can really cause you to miss a 10-pin later on when you need it.
Yeah, keeping your emotional levels even is part of the deal, and your energy levels has a lot to do with that. So if you can watch what you eat, it can have a big effect on your performance. The guys on tour have learned that if you keep your body weight down and you stay a little skinnier, your swing stays in tighter, you're able to do more things on the lanes, and they feel better and their energy is better over that full block.